Okay, hi and hello everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well. Hope you don't mind me switching up the format a little bit just to kick off what is going to be a wonderful, amazing, fantastic, and enjoyable 2022 List Week. We are going over EPs, worst singles, worst albums, best albums, as we typically do every year. And also, like we typically do, I do a little bit of an honorable mention of some records that I enjoyed, I thought were great, but maybe didn't quite make the cut of my final albums list, which there were quite a few this year because I actually threw more albums on the love list this year than I typically do. Sometimes I round out things close to or just under 50, but we went over 50 this year, honestly, which is kind of crazy. Meanwhile, some of the other LPs here, while I may not have graded them as highly as I did some 9s or something like that in reviews over the course of the year, I still think they're quite good. I still think they may be worth your attention. And if anything I say piques your interest, every project I talk about here is listed down below so you can check it out for yourself. All right, kicking things off with the honorable mentions, we are talking about Miss Amber Mark. Her new record, 3 Dimensions Deep, is one of the best and most classy R&B, soul, and pop crossovers that I've heard this year. A really robust record as well. And, being so young, being this her first album, seems like she's just kind of getting started. So really excited to see her grow artistically, aesthetically, vocally as well, because the singing is pretty strong on this LP at many points. And yeah, just really solid project all around that I think more people should be paying attention to, and artists to be watching over the next few years. Next, we have, of course, Rosalia's MOTOMAMI. This was a really big highlight of the year, a favorite for many. I've seen this record on one list after another. Me personally, I found the record to be a little inconsistent, kind of choppy, but even with that being the case, there were some very amazing and forward-thinking Latin bangers on this thing, very creative production, very catchy songs, of course, great vocal performances, because on that end, very few do it quite like Rosalia. While it did not make my final album list, I thought I would shout it out here because it was one of my most anticipated records of 2022, and I did enjoy it for the most part. Next, we are going in a country direction with Orville Peck's Bronco. Orville did make some of my favorite tracks of the year on this LP, no doubt. While I think the record overall is a little cumbersome and there are some bits of it aesthetically that I find to be a little too squeaky clean, the singing, though, is fire for the most part on this project. Orville really improved by leaps and bounds vocally, I think. If you have not been listening to Orville Peck, what the hell are you doing? Start doing so. Okay, next we have the one and only Steve Lacy, who I thought also improved by leaps and bounds on this latest LP here. Many of you should be well familiar with some of the biggest and most viral hits, especially on TikTok, from this project. And that wasn't just merely a fluke. The songwriting on this thing is fantastic, at least on its biggest highlights anyway. As an overall listening experience, I thought the LP was a little lopsided, but again, Steve bested his last album by quite a bit, I think, while also sticking to his very DIY and lo-fi guns. Coming up next, it is Joey Bad with his 2000 LP, another one of my most anticipated projects of the year, and I'm happy for the most part it came out really good. Maybe not as hard-hitting as American Badass, but Joey is in a chiller and I think more contemplative state on this record. While the bops didn't exactly like blow me away or anything like that, the more personal and introspective moments hit in a new kind of way for him, really digging down deep into his feelings about his success, his progression to this point, of course, his late friend Capital Steez. Yeah, there's just a lot of passionate, moving highlights on this thing that were quite good, and Joey Badass is sounding really mature, still creative, and still thoughtful on this project. Okay, next we have pretty much everybody's favorite indie pick for the year. That would be Alvvays' Blue Rev. While I don't think this project was the concise batch of super snappy songs that their last album was, they really did go all out sonically on this thing, embracing some shoegaze aesthetics on many tracks, and doing so in a really creative and I think, true to form way. The guitar noise and the effects sounded really bold, not too derivative to the point where you would just much rather listen to one of the greats, one of the classics. But this was not the totality of the album. Of course, there were some great indie pop and rock cuts, some tracks that have like more of a twee flavor to them. The band really covered a range of sounds and styles in kind of that classic indie vein on this one. And the songwriting kind of popped off. The performances were really good as well. Just a quality project from what is quickly becoming one of the most consistent rock outfits out of Canada at the moment. Next, it is Westside Gunn with 10. This record has some of my favorite rap cuts of the year on it. Westside also ending off his HWH series with this project. Some really awesome production, some really awesome and legendary features on this record as well. The Griselda guys had quite a run this year, and this record was, just one piece of that. And it seems like with every passing year and every new batch of albums, Westside and, of course, Benny and Conway kind of get stronger and more versatile and more creative. So there you go. Okay, following that, we have Quadeca, producer, songwriter, singer, rapper, coming through with his brand new LP, I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, which was quite an upset for many this year because Quadeca, formerly a YouTube rapper who a lot of people thought to just kind of be weird and corny and not all that interesting, comes through with this album that embraces a lot of interesting shades of experimental music, of art pop music, singer-songwriter music. Of course, there's some elements of hip-hop in there as well. It's a concept project and quite an eerie and surreal one at that. And yeah, just wanted to celebrate this project because some of my favorite singles of the year are on it. I wasn't born yesterday. The best beats and instrumentals on this thing are top fucking notch. And it's just amazing that Quadeca artistically has been able to evolve so rapidly, creatively, and efficiently and effectively over the past few years to the point where just people are just blown away. People are surprised. And, just turning a new leaf creatively, and I think for the better. So, awesome. Next, it is Little Simz with No Thank You. Just reviewed this one. And, some of the best rap cuts that you will hear this year are on this record. As an overall experience, was I wanting more? Yes. Does it falter a little bit toward the end? Yes. Do some of the tracks feel like kind of holdovers from her last album cycle, at least in terms of like their ethos, their mindset, the messages she's trying to get across? Yes. But the rapping is still great. The production is still amazing. The songwriting is still there. She's still one of the most creative and unique rap artists out there. Like, how could tracks that, sound like extras that she pushed out a year after her last album not also be good? Like, even when Simz is dropping a project that is very clearly meant to sort of hold us over until we get another record, or just like kind of get everything out in this era of her career that is worth listening to. Even when she's dropping a project like that, it's going to be better than most of what, your average rappers out there are putting out. So even with a few duds on it, like the core cuts, the highlights on this record are amazing. Broken and X are some of the most powerful cuts in her entire discography. Gorilla is one of the most fun and witty songs I think she's ever put together. So hell yeah, I'm praising this record. Deserves all the attention that it can get. I'm just sort of afraid that with it dropping so late toward the end of the year and, there kind of being a lot of lists happening before or around the same time, it may not get the shine that it should, but definitely do not miss this project. Next, it is Freddie Gibbs with Soul Sold Separately. Freddie Kane, Freddie Forgiato came through with a new record over here that's a bit of a kind of a concept. There's a kind of a flow to it, a lot of references to a casino hotel. There are some celebrity voices and guests as well on the record, kind of transitioning us from track to track to track. But outside of a lot of that stuff, I didn't find much of the content and, Freddie's approach with rapping on this project to be super novel or refreshing. Kind of seems like he was sticking to his guns on this one a little bit while making some attempts here and there to throw a more mainstream cut out or two to maybe kind of land a crossover. But even with that being the case, the vast majority of the tracks on this thing are really good and, live up to the quality level that we've come to expect from Freddie Gibbs. Am I more partial to records in his catalog that have more of an underground slant like Pinata? Yes. But even with Freddie dipping into a a direction that I'm not super crazy about on this record, he still managed to come through with a good project, a really good project, in fact, and I will be waiting on the edge of my seat for the next one too. Following this next, we have what I felt personally was the highlight of the 3 records that King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard dropped this past October. Maybe I am the odd man out on this one, as I think a lot of fans tended to gravitate toward the other 2 albums that got dropped. And I guess I would understand that because they are good, solid records with a lot of highlights on them. But Laminated Denim's 2 very jammy, long, linear, almost like psychedelic and krautrock inspired tracks really did whip me up into a trance that did not break from the beginning to the end of this 30-minute record. While Laminated Denim may not be as grand or conceptual as the LP that King Gizzard started the month with, or as fun and snappy as the one they finished the month off with, Changes. Again, this was the record that really kind of locked me in and held me in a trance from beginning to end, and the band really seems to be sort of in a jam-centric phase at this point in their catalog, and I think this project is kind of what distills that energy down best. Okay, following this next on the list, we have UK jazz fusion outfit The Comet Is Coming with Hyperdimensional Expansion Beam. The band coming through with some of the most forward-thinking, futuristic, electronically tinged fusion cuts that you were going to hear this year. Jazz heads take note. Sax heads take note. Were there elements of it that I thought could have pushed the boundaries a little bit harder? Yes, absolutely. But even when not meeting expectations, I think if this record continues to show anything, it's that Shabaka Hutchings, really any project he's involved in, is going to be a cut above much of what you're hearing out there in the jazz field, in terms of at least excitement and creative genre fusions coming together. And yeah, again, this record was fun, versatile, colorful, and you should absolutely check it out. Moving on from there, we have this new Benny the Butcher record, Tana Talk 4. Really solid one from Benny on this one, just like I was kind of saying about Westside Gunn earlier. Griselda, they've been having a great run this year. Tana Talk 4 is just another part of that run. And yeah, I think Benny came through with his usual level of quality wordplay, but was just a bit more ambitious and consistent on the songwriting and production front. It's just a good rap record all around. Next, it is a shout out to the Foxtails record, Fawn. The Screamo and Emo fans out there take note of this one, not just because the performances are killer, but the addition of violin on many tracks is kind of refreshing, and one-of-a-kind vocals on this record too. Some really quality lyricism as well. This was a record that wowed a lot of people toward the front end of the year, but unfortunately I think has lost a little bit of steam and attention as 2022 has drawn on. But if this album somehow managed to slip by you in the summer months, in the fall months, please go back, rewind, hit that rewind button, visit it, and see what it has to offer, because it is a very unique and a very passionate Screamo project. And finally, shout out to Toro y Moise Mahal, a very funky, groovy, versatile LP from Chaz with a bit of a theater of the mind thing going on, oriented around this vehicle that he's driving, and, like listening to tape. The project's track list is almost oriented as if it's a mix of some sort. It's again, it's cute, it's funky. One of Chaz's most bass and groove-centric projects thus far. Those bass lines really go off on this one. If you love those bass lines, you're going to want to listen to this one. Some pretty cheeky cuts as well. I think Chaz makes effective use of his sense of humor on many cuts here too. While again, did not make my final year-end list, this is handily one of my favorite Toro projects thus far. And I think that is going to be it for the honorable mentions in this video, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully, again, you take some of these recommendations seriously. You try these projects out. You give these artists a shot. And from here, you can look forward to the EP, singles, and albums videos. 2022. Transition. Have you given any of these albums a listen? Did you love them? Did you hate them? What would you rate them? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, 2022, honorable mentions forever.